Greetings from sunny Sydney. Hello, I'm Doug McCartney. Now, the one or two things I forgot to mention. I want to talk to you. This will only take 5 minutes, so don't worry. Just hang around. You can stick around for 5 minutes, I'm sure. Just put your little twiddle box down. You'll survive. Years ago, I'm going back a couple of decades, it used to take approximately, let's try again, 24 hours to fuel and ready a nuclear missile for launch. But nowadays we have what is known as hair trigger alert. It only takes 15 minutes to prepare a missile for launch. The slightest fear that something's gone wrong, that the other side has launched a missile attack against the USA, for example, these missiles, these bombs, everything can be ready for launch within 15 minutes. I'll give you a little bit of an example so you know what I'm talking about. How does this affect you? Well, let's think about it. Whereas in the good old days of nuclear war, should there be a mistake, an error, such as I outlined in my previous video to you, it would take probably up to 24 hours to prepare their missiles for launch. In that space of time, any mistakes that have been made could quite possibly be rectified. But now, there's no chance of that whatsoever. The first hint of a whiff, of a snippet of danger, for example, the USA's missiles will be launched against Russia, China, whoever, doesn't matter. And then, of course, the same happens on the other side. They retaliate by launching theirs. It can all be over. The whole world can be destroyed within the space of an hour or two. Does that bother you? Probably not. You've got other things to concentrate on, haven't you? But I am concerned about it, and I'm hoping I might be able to interest one or two of you, maybe 1 or 200, or maybe 1 or 2,000. Who knows? Here's the other thing you need to know, you need to wake up to. There is no such thing as a limited nuclear war. Can't be done. Sorry about that. Once it starts, once the first few missiles have been launched and a few cities have been destroyed, like say we just knock out, Petersburg or whatever it's called these days, or Moscow, and we think, oh, that's it, now we can call a halt to it. Forget about that. The moment the first 1 or 2 nuclear missiles have been launched, they're all launched. Picture this. You've got a room full of primed mousetraps in an earthquake zone. And there's a little bit of shaking going on there. Jerry Lee Lewis, whole lot of shaking going on. 1 or 2 of those mousetraps are triggered. What happens? They trigger the next 5 or 6 mousetraps, then the next 100 mousetraps, then the next 16,000 nuclear missiles. Launch one, you launch the lot. So don't fall for this bullshit about a limited nuclear war. There is no such animal. And now I have a message from my fellow Australians. Now, you Americans, Canadians, Europeans, Brits, you can all switch off now, because this is aimed at Australians. Because Australians feel safe down here. Oh yes, doesn't really matter what happens to Europe and Britain and Russia and China, Japan. We're okay down here, we're safe. What a load of old bollocks, excuse me, but that's what that kind of thinking is. Just think for a moment, if you dare. What the hell do you think is going to happen once the northern hemisphere is obliterated and it's covered in this thick black cloud of garbage, burned bodies and nuclear dust, radioactive dust? And this dust is heading south, this black cloud. Every ship on the planet is going to head south, especially the American 6th Fleet. I don't know, what have they got these days, 7th, 8th, 9th or 10th Fleet, all the submarines, the battleships, the aircraft carriers, and not just the American fleet, the Chinese fleet, the Russian fleet. Everybody's going to head south. Some will go to South Africa, some will go to South America, but the vast majority of them are going to head for Australia. And by the way, did I mention New Zealand? That's where everybody's going to be heading for. Now, you might think, as an Australian, all you need to do is wave a little white flag that says special relationship. Wake up, you morons. These Matalos are going to be desperate for food, water, shelter, and guess what? Sex. So lock up your wives, lock up your daughters, because all hell is going to break loose in the southern hemisphere. You're going to wish that you had died with those poor buggers in the northern hemisphere. There is no escaping what's going to happen once nuclear war breaks out. It's going to be hell on earth. Absolute 100% hell on earth. Get used to it. And the icing on the cake, once the nuclear warheads have done their damage, is the chemical and biological weapons that are going to be released. The absolute horror, the most unbelievably diabolical weapons, beyond my imagination, quite probably beyond your imagination. But what we do know is, although they're illegal, banned, we know that Russia has a vast stock of these chemical and biological weapons. And I'm just guessing here, but is it just possible that the USA has similar stocks? So just in case there are a few people left alive, these are going to be released. So don't think for 1 minute you're going to be able to gasp a few breaths once World War III breaks out. Every imaginable horror is going to take place. And oh, what? So you've got a football match coming up, or is it a baseball match? Surely that's more important. Is it? Are you sure about that? Are you sure you shouldn't be concerning yourself with what really matters? I've had a few people respond to my original video, and they're telling me that far from worrying about global warming or global scorching once the 16,000 nuclear missiles explode and melt in the polar ice caps, we should be more worried about nuclear winter. Now, I still believe I was right in mentioning the melting polar ice caps, because imagine the heat generated by 16,000 nuclear warheads. Imagine 16,000 Mount Vesuvius and Mount Etna going off at the same time. Imagine the heat generated. But that's a temporary worry. Oh, we'll soon get over that. 16,000 nuclear warheads. Apparently, what will happen is that this black cloud of earth and buildings and corpses and radioactive dust, it will eventually, after a few days or the most weeks, envelop the entire planet, block out the sun, and everything, should there be anything left alive anyway, I don't think there'd be much, everything will die. Every human, every animal, every corn cob, every little wheat sheaf, everything will die, because nothing can survive without sunlight. And so whether it's global scorching or nuclear winter, one way or another, it's gonna get you. It's gonna get you, it's gonna get your children, it's gonna get your grandchildren, your pet rabbits, your little lettuces you're growing out the back there. Everything is gonna die, and die horribly. What are you gonna do about it? Please explain. Now, I tried to end my last video on an optimistic note, so I'll give it another shot. I'll try again now. I do believe there is a possibility, albeit a slim possibility, that we can prevent this happening. We do have a chance of preventing nuclear war. I've had some, people have responded to the last video saying, what can the ordinary man do in the street? Well, don't do it in the street, whatever you do. We can do something. We can take note, take an interest, and speak to other people about it. Now, here's my thinking. I mentioned last time that thousands of young people were demonstrating in the street about global warming. And I mentioned the most important thing we can do is stress to them that as important as global warming is, the far more important and urgent problem is global scorching. We need to get them to take an interest in both. Now, we need some celebrities to take note. We need some politicians, we need some movie stars, we need some music heroes. We need some important people to take notice, because it's no good me yakking on. I'm a nobody. Nobody's heard of me. Nobody knows anything about me. And had it not been for Al Gore, Vice President of the USA, had he not produced his movie, video, what was it called, An Inconvenient Truth, probably no one will be taking any notice about climate change right now. It takes a celebrity, a well-known person. If I can only attract some movie stars, some, music here, Elton John. No, Elton John's got other things to worry about. He's an important man. We need someone. I don't know who it's going to be, but I remember here in Australia we do have one politician who is very concerned about nuclear war. Someone Evans, someone or other, or something like that. I'll look him up and I'll contact him. We need some important people to take notice and spread this message worldwide. One other thing, and I'll mention this at the very end. Why am I bothering if I don't believe that something could be done about this? At the end of this, I'll give you one of my favorite quotes. I have a lot of them, but I'll give you one of my favorites. And it's all about how a small group of concerned people can move mountains. First, I have to find the small group of concerned people, because at the moment, Madeleine Murray O'Hair was murdered. Dr. Helen Caldicott, I don't know whether she's retired or what, but I have to contact her. I have to touch base with some important respected people, because if only we can get together to influence young people, to encourage them to care about their future, then we might just be able to give them a future. I haven't got much else to say. I mean, what I'm hoping is we can save life on planet Earth. That's what this is all about. If you feel like you'd like to give me a hand, because I don't really know what I'm doing, I'm just an ordinary Joe Blow. I don't know how to make flash videos with all the bits and pieces and flashy bits. Join me. Let's try and save life on planet Earth, for goodness sake.